Aloha. In this video, we're going to be talking about threat actors and attack vectors. And this is going to be a fun section here. So let's go ahead and jump into the material. So threat actors, we talked about this previously, but a threat actor, what they do is they exploit the vulnerabilities for a variety of reasons. Uh, some of the reasons may be harming people, organizations, governments. It could be they want to access secret information. They may be, let's say, a company that's trying to attack another company and get their trade secrets. There's a lot of attacking that goes on out there by China, for example. China has one of the biggest uh, trade secret theft programs out there. They do a lot of hacking to get a lot of intellectual property from American companies, companies all over the world, actually. So they're huge into this type of corporate espionage. Uh, so threat actors that you have out there, these bad players, as you will, they have a lot of different levels of technical expertise. They have different computing capabilities, and they also have a different amount of financial backing. In other words, the tools that they have at their availability, or the strength of if it's not just a person, if it's a group of people, you imagine that if you're just a single person, you don't have a lot of resources. But if you're a government, you have unlimited resources. So that really, depending on who that threat actor is, that they could have a lot of money behind them, as well as computing capabilities and technical expertise. Imagine if you had the U.S. military hacking into your stuff. They've got a lot of expertise. They've got a lot of computing abilities. They've got a lot of equipment. They've got a lot of money behind them. So the U.S. military as a threat actor is a very formidable force. Um, Threat actors, they can be motivated by financial gain. They could be into service disruption, blackmail, revenge. And another thing about threat actors is they're not always outside. They may be insiders. So let's say you're a company. You can have a threat actor that is trying to break into your company, but you can have bad people inside your company. Not only that, but sometimes these, let's say you have somebody on the inside, it they could be a threat without even being a bad, actor, in the sense that they could accidentally do things. They could be an employee that accidentally clicks on a phishing, a phishing email. So you have, accidental damage that can come about there. But the main actors that we're going to be talking about here, we're going to be talking about security hackers. We're going to talk about script kiddies. We're going to talk about hacktivists, state actors, criminal syndicates, and corporate competitors. And these are going to be easy to understand. It's you'll want to understand their motivations. You'll want to understand, what their intentions are. That's really important because I remember from the test, the certification exam, that they do want you to know what the different types are, and they're pretty easy to understand. So the first type we're going to talk about here is the security hacker. So the security hackers are people that are going to they're going to use various techniques that they've learned to exploit the vulnerabilities in computer systems and the networks. So security hackers, they're generally divided into three groups. You've got your white hat hacker. So white hacker, the white hat idea kind of goes back to the country westerns, where the good guys wore the white hats, the bad guys wore the black hats. And then you've got gray hat, which is somewhere in between, which really isn't from Westerns, but that's okay. So you think of a white hat hacker as an ethical hacker. There's an actual certification called the ethical hacking certification. But the idea is that you've got somebody that's non-malicious. They're not trying to do bad stuff. They're actually a good guy. But what a white hat hacker is there's somebody that's been tasked by the systems owners. So let's say you're Coca-Cola and you want to hire hackers to try to break into uh, into your systems in order to see how safe your systems are. So a white hat hacker, an ethical hacker, is the type of person or group that would be tasked with doing something like that. So they're the good guys that are testing the systems to make sure that they're safe. The gray hat hacker is kind of in the middle. So a gray hat hacker is somebody they don't mean any harm, they're non-malicious, but they're trying to find system vulnerabilities, but they haven't been given the permission of the system owner. And that's very important to keep in mind. So they haven't been given permission, and but their purpose is to find problems and then let the system owner know about it. So the thing to keep in mind here is that's most likely still illegal. If you try to hack another company's equipment or things like that, that is illegal. That is not legal in most cases. So even if you're trying to do it for a good reason, without the permission of the target, you should not do that. And then we get into the black hat hacker, which is very simple. That's a malicious security hacker. They've identified and now they're trying to exploit a system's vulnerabilities without the knowledge and without the consent of the system's owner. It's like, hey, I want to know what's in KFC's secret recipe. So I'm going to go and hack into KFC and I'm going to get their recipe. And I'm doing it without their knowledge and I'm doing it without their consent because they probably wouldn't allow me to take that. So, so anyway, that's our security hacker. So another type of hacker is what they call the script kiddie. And script kiddie is a very derogatory term. So scripts are basically, bits of code, and kiddie is, of course, children. So they look at script kiddies as kind of contemptuous. The idea here is that it's an unskilled person. They don't know how to, they don't know how to make these things. They're just using scripts that other people wrote and developed. So yeah, so people don't look on script kiddies that well because I guess in the hacker community, creating things on your own and knowing how to do it and, understanding things in detail so you can create the hacks and whatnot, that is considered honorable isn't the name I'm looking for, but it's considered better to be able to do that. So script kiddies are just people that go out there, they find a hacking tool, they use that, and they don't really understand it. They don't have a knowledge of why. They talk about here, script kiddie may execute a script that launches a UDP flood attack without having any knowledge of the transport layer protocols. So so yeah, you don't have to worry about what UDP flood attacks are just yet. We'll get into that later. But just know that a script kiddie is an unskilled person. They're unskilled. They don't really have the programming skills or the knowledge. They just have these tools that other people have made that they use. So here we have a quick overview of security hackers that we were talking about before. So the white hat, remember they're authorized. Gray hat, semi-authorized? No, they're not. They're really not authorized at all. They haven't been told they've got permission. Then black hat, also unauthorized. Intention, obviously white hat is, non-malicious because they're hired. Gray hat is non-malicious, but they're still not legal. The only one that's legal here is the white hat because they've been paid by, this company or owner of the system to do this to try to find their vulnerabilities. The gray hat on the other side is doing it, just for, to help them out, but it's not legal because they haven't gotten permission in advance. And black hat, it's totally illegal for malicious reasons. They're doing it for money most probably, but not always money. They can be doing it for other reasons. And then it is strictly illegal. So we get into talking about, identifying which is which here. So go through that. There's other threat actors out there, and these are kind of exciting ones too. So you've got what we call an APT, an advanced persistent threat, and that's a kind of a threat. So an APT is the type of hacker that wants to get in your system and establish long-term, exploitation. So it's somebody that wants to get into a system and stay there for a long time. Often the type of long-term persistent, threats are going to be state actors. So state actors are, people or groups that are working on behalf of the government. They may actually be the government itself. They may be, the Chinese and Russian government, and the U.S. government has hacking groups that do this type of espionage. So what they will try to do, and it's amazing. So I've listened to a lot of talks and a lot of different podcasts and whatnot on different attacks out there. And it's amazing when you compare different company or different countries and how they use APTs. So North Korea is probably on the simplest side. They do some pretty impressive attacks. They don't do as much APT attacks, but as a state actor, they attack with the intention of getting money because they're a cash-strapped nation. They do a lot of things, hack a lot of different companies for money. Occasionally, like the Sony hack, they'll do it as revenge for insulting their dear leader. So you do have things like that. Russia, on the other hand, doesn't do a lot of attacking for money. They end up doing a lot of things, usually for strategic gain, but often they'll do it. They've attacked the Olympics before, and they've done it in order to just for petty revenge, for being excluded because of anti-doping rules and whatnot. For being banned from certain events, they've actually hacked the Olympics. It's pretty amazing what's happened out there. China and Russia, or China, China does a lot of IP theft. They'll do a lot of very sophisticated stuff. China has one of the most advanced uh, uh, cyber, espionage, groups out there. They're very impressive. Actually, all these countries are very good at what they do. China is extremely good at what they do. The US also is very, very good, very, very advanced at what we do. We're considered one of the best, if not the best, but China is very close behind, if not on par with us, I would say. Um, so anyway, these state actors, for example, some of the hacks that have been attributed to the U.S., they've had quantum attacks where they would get they would become advanced persistent threats by gaining access into a system, dropping part of a hack in, and then over time getting access and putting in other parts, assembling, at some point the actual uh, executable code that they're going to use to run and exploit the system. And it's just amazing what these hackers can do. And the US, I remember one specific case where they were in a foreign country and they had hacked a telecom company and gotten access to I guess what do you call it, when you go in and you're listening in on phone calls, and they gain the ability to listen to recordings of all types of politicians and corporate executives. So that was a pretty impressive one. But the key to a lot of these hacks is if you're needing information over a long period of time, you need to find a way to get into that system and stay in the system. So the persistence is the important part of that. You want to get in, stay in, and make sure that nobody can pull you out and nobody will find you. So there's those types of evasive hacking, where you need to establish that long-term uh, presence inside a system and not be removed or discovered. That takes a lot of sophistication, and that's why it's often the state actors, the countries that are backing that kind of thing because they have more resources and abilities. We have hacktivists or hacker activists. These are usually people or groups of people that are trying to promote their agenda. Let's say Anonymous is one example. I remember on a couple of occasions when I think they've come out on a lot of different sides of things before, but hacktivists often they'll target multinational corporations. They'll go after government agencies. Anonymous is one of the most famous ones that have come out, and they'll be offended by something and they'll attack the infrastructure. Some people support, some people don't. But at the end of the day, it's illegal activity, and the FBI, has done a lot to try to curb, hacktivist behavior in the past. But the thing to remember about a hacker activist is they have different ranges of abilities, but it's their motivation that you need to understand for the test. They're motivated by values or their agenda. So they have reasons, to do it. Like let's say they're upset about let's say an oil spill in Alaska. So whoever did the oil spill, their idea is they're going to attack that company. They want to expose whatever. So that's what happens. That's what hacktivists are. Then we've got cyber syndicates. Cyber syndicates, the main thing to know about them is they're criminal syndicates. They're solely interested in money. Think of the old crime gangs. It's the same thing except they're doing it in the cyberspace. So it's internet-based criminal activities. You're going to have your fraud, extortion, ransom, identity theft type things, whatever they can make money from. That's all it comes down to, and they can do some sophisticated attacks. Um, they often target financial things like retailers, banks, financial institutions. And ransomware is one thing they can use. But the idea is the motivation is money. They're just out there to get money. And just remember that they often have a good bit of money and resources to do their attacks with. So they're well resourced and they're after money. That's their thing. And then we have cyber espionage, really. Competitor is a rival organization. They're going to go out there and they're going to try to reduce their target's market share, perhaps. But the idea is, sometimes they're trying to steal their IP, their intellectual property. So their patents, their secrets, figure out the secret sauce, the secret ingredients, whatever it is. So the idea is you go in and you're doing things to uh, you know weaken your competitor or strengthen yourself against the competitor by knowing what they're doing. So that could be targeting their sales events or stealing their customer information, corrupting their databases, making it harder for them to do their job. It's that kind of stuff. So here we have some participation activities. They're just going to kind of get into what's for here it says the most likely threat actor in each scenario. So you try to figure out which one. Um, then attack vectors and surface. So when we're talking about attack vectors, so an attack vector is, or a threat vector is essentially the path or the means by which an attack is realized. So that can be email. So you can use email as the way that you deliver your attack. There's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different attack vectors. You can use direct access. So if you have a physical connection to the computer, you can attack it that way. You can do it wirelessly. As wireless, packets are being sent, you could listen in on that and grab it and try to influence that. You can have software on there, like if you haven't patched your computer or your different software that you have installed, they might have a known bug in there that somebody can exploit. There's unsupported systems and applications. For example, if you're using Windows XP, for example, way out of date, it's no longer supported, so it's easier to hack. There's a lot of known exploits for it. So if you're using an unsupported system, you can get hacked that way. Same for the software packages you might be using. There's ways to get you through messaging. See, people can send you a link, and if you click on that link in your text messages, you could end up in a lot of trouble. iPhone at one point had a hack where a person could send you an email and infect you without you doing a single thing. That was a zero-day exploit that they ended up fixing, but that was used by some nation states for a little while before it was discovered. Then image, this is a little bit harder, but you can embed malicious code in an image file and run it. One of the most wicked things out there is supply chain. So the idea of a supply chain is you've got a company that's making something and they get their parts from different places. And those parts or those parts that are being made may get their parts from different places. So supply chain poisoning is when you inject or when something happens at one of those levels and that piece becomes part of a larger piece that eventually gets into your product. So they can do something like on a smaller board or chip or something that's being made, they can inject, some evil firmware or something like that that can affect your overall product at the end. There was an interesting hack. I think Snowden leaked this, but hardware manufacturers, particularly hard drives, they were able to, I think, infiltrate some of the hard drive companies and get something put in. It's such a low level that nobody had any idea that this was going on, and they were able to exfiltrate data. So it's pretty wild, when you're looking at supply chain attacks. Social media is delivering customized attack against the target based on the target's social media post. I remember hearing about a penetration test that was done against a company, and these people researched them on LinkedIn and Facebook, saw what their interests were, and they noticed that they were really into volunteering for some pet cause or some animal cause. So when they were going over there and they were doing their penetration test, they disguised themselves saying that they were related to such and such, and there was that connection, and they used that against them, and they ended up hacking them. And they were hired to do this, but at the end of the day, they were able to use social media against them. So this is a warning to people that put all their stuff out there on social media. You're giving all this open source information that people can just see and use against you. Removable media, delivering malware using removable media such as a USB flash drive. So we have things out there. I think I have some on my desk here even. Let me see if I've still got it. But you can find things like this. Well, I'd have to open up that device. Let me see if I've got one. Here we go. So I've got this right here, which is it's a little chip. It's a DigiSpark, but if you put a plastic housing around this, you can have essentially a USB drive, known as a rubber ducky. And if you plug that in, you can have it do certain things. You can deliver a payload, what we call a payload. We can have it run a script or something and do some bad things to that system. So a lot of people will take a handful of these little USB drives, spread them, sprinkle them around, outside in the parking lot. People see it and they're like, oh, wait, I wonder what's on that. They'll pick it up, and almost everybody sticks it in their computer. When you stick it in the computer, it can immediately, before you can even stop it or understand what it's doing, it can do all kinds of stuff. So I was just at DEF CON, which is a big hacker conference in Las Vegas. And while I was there, somebody gave me something that was pretty cool. And I don't have the exact one in hand here, but it looks kind of like this. And it was a YubiKey, and if you plug it into your computer, it would rickroll you. So you plug it in, and it opens up a browser and goes to a YouTube page that has, Rick Astley's, Never Gonna Give You Up on there. So that was pretty funny. But imagine if it wasn't, Rick Astley. What if it was something that was going to delete your entire computer, or add a user and give it a backdoor into your system? That kind of stuff is scary. And that is easy to do when you have people's, when you hack people, or you basically hack their mentality, where it's like, hey, they like free stuff and they're curious. You leave a couple USB drives around, people just stick it right in. So we also have the cloud. The cloud is another vector. So if you're using cloud computing, network, and storage resources like Google Drive, things like that, so that can be used to launch attacks against your targets. So when we talk about an attack surface, we've just talked about a bunch of attack vectors. That attack surface is going to be the sum of all these points that a threat actor can use to attempt to, extract data from you. So if you have all these vulnerabilities out there, your attack surface is going to be that, all the, the combination of all the different ways that they can use these attack vectors against your vulnerabilities. And they have a nice demonstration here. When you look at it, they have a nice demonstration that's going to show you, okay, here's all of our vulnerabilities here. This is, what we've got here. So our computer devices, our networking equipment, and users have vulnerabilities which can be exploited by the threat actor. So you go next, you see that all these things are now your attack surface. So the unencrypted wireless data, the lack of user training, the open ports, the default passwords, default passwords, unpatched operating system. All these are your vulnerabilities, and all these are your attack surface. So now, given these vulnerabilities, you have all these different attack vectors, and we can go ahead and see that a threat actor out here, they can use messaging and exploit the vulnerability of the lack of user training to get at the users. So there's different ways. So the threat actor is going to use these different attack vectors to exploit the vulnerabilities. So now a threat actor can use virtual servers in the cloud to connect to devices such as CCTV cameras, which are using the manufacturer's default passwords. So, yeah, so this is a great example of using those attack vectors. And there's something also that you need to be aware of. It's called shadow IT. So shadow IT, it's not as nefarious as it sounds. It's simply something like this. Let's say that I am an instructor at a university, like me at Kapiolani. So let's say that we have our network here, and we have the people that give us our computers. The computer I have on my desk, it is supplied by the university. They control it. They have all kinds of software on there that monitors whether or not I've got private information going in and out. So this is all monitored. But what happens if I take my own computer and stick it in here? It's also on the network. It's connecting to network devices and doing things. Let's say I put in a server, a web server, and I have people coming in to see that web server. That is a problem because my stuff that the IT people don't know about is a vulnerability within the system here. So shadow IT is this information, IT systems that's deployed at a company or a university like, or a community college like mine. It's all this IT that's being used without the knowledge of the IT department. So it becomes a vulnerability because if they don't know about it, they're not going to know that the things I have haven't been patched, or they don't have the latest operating system, the latest software, everything. So they don't know, they're not monitoring it. So the people whose job it is to make sure that the IT is running smoothly and is secure, they're not aware of these systems. And if they're not aware of these systems, then you have shadow IT. Uh, you've got a group within a group that is unsecure or could be insecure. So that is the problem with shadow IT, and that's what you need to know about that. So shadow IT systems, they're threats that introduce security and compliance concerns because such systems are not monitored and configured according to the company's security policies, or they may not be configured according to the security policies. So that's what you need to know about that. And that concludes our look into threat actors and attack vectors. Again, I'm throwing in a lot of extra information here just to try to make it a little bit more easier to understand through example. If you don't like that as much, let me know and I can try to shorten the videos. But yeah, that's it for this lesson. I hope it was informative. Have yourself a great day. Aloha.